The evacuation sirens had been silent for 3 hours. Captain Vera Callas pressed her face against the reinforced viewport of Research Station Meridian 7. Watching the last human transport disappear into the cosmic void, her breath fogged the crystal steel as she counted the ship's one final time 47 vessels, carrying 18,000 souls to safety. 18,000 minus one. They actually did it, she whispered to the empty command center, her voice echoing off polished metal walls adorned with the Earth colonial defense insignia. They actually left me. The Vorthic invasion fleet stretched across the starfield, like a cancerous constellation over 200 warships bristling with energy cannons and neural disruptors, their biomechanical hulls pulsed with sickly green light, each vessel a living nightmare born from flesh and technology, intelligence. Estimated they'd reach Meridian 7 in 6 hours. Vera's hands trembled as she accessed her personal logs. The final message from Admiral Kozlovsky played again. Captain Callas, by order of Colonial Command, you are to remain aboard Meridian 7 to oversee critical data destruction. Your sacrifice ensures humanity's survival. Godspeed. Sacrifice. The word tasted like copper pennies and betrayal. She discovered the truth 3 days ago buried in encrypted files. That command thought they'd scrubbed clean. The Vorthic weren't just invading. They were hunting, specifically hunting her, Dr. Vera Callas, the architect of Project Nemesis, humanity's most classified bioweapon program. The same program that had created the viral agents currently locked in containment vaults 3 levels below her feet. Command had known the Vorthic would demand her surrender in exchange for sparing the civilian population. They calculated the odds and decided her life was worth exactly 18,000 others. Simple mathematics, cold logic, except they miscalculated one crucial factor. Vera had no intention of dying quietly. She moved through the station's corridors with mechanical precision, her emergency beacon disabled, life support optimized for a single occupant. Meridian 7 wasn't just a research facility, it was a fortress disguised as a laboratory. Hidden weapon systems, experimental shielding, and enough firepower to level a small moon, all of it requiring her biometric authorization to activate. The Vorthic had spent months studying human military doctrine, intercepting communications, learning their tactics, but they'd never encountered a human scientist with nothing left to lose and access to weapons. That violated 17 interstellar treaties. In the biolab, Vera's reflection stared back from a polished containment unit, 43 years old, graying at the temples, crow's feet from squinting at microscopes and star charts. She dedicated her life to protecting humanity through science, through careful research and measured progress. That woman was gone now, abandoned along with her principal somewhere in the void between the stars. The Vorthic wanted Dr. Vera Callas, the brilliant researcher who'd unlock the secrets of biological warfare. Instead, they were about to meet Captain Vera Callas, who'd learned those same secrets and had 6 hours to weaponize everything she'd spent years trying to contain. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, pulling up station schematics and weapons manifests. The research data would be destroyed as ordered, but not before she copied every bit of useful information into portable storage units. If Command wanted her to die for humanity's sins, she'd make sure her death bought them something more valuable than time. She'd make it buy them a lesson in what happened when you cornered a human being who'd spent her career studying how to kill alien species on a molecular level. The first Vorthic scout ships would arrive within the hour. Vera sealed the command center blast doors and began uploading her consciousness into the station's AI matrix, not to preserve herself, but to ensure her fury would outlive her flesh. Let them come. Let them take their prize. They'd choke on it. The Vorthic scout ships materialized from hyperspace like predatory insects, their biomechanical forms pulsing with organic rhythms. Through Meridian 7 sensors, Vera watched them approach 6 vessels the size of frigates, their hulls covered in chitinous armor that shifted and rippled like living skin. She sat in the command chair, surrounded by holographic displays showing every system aboard the station. Her fingers moved across controls with practiced ease, bringing weapons online that hadn't been fired in anger for decades. The official records listed them as defensive systems. The classified addendum was more accurate: experimental weapons platform, unauthorized for deployment. Attention human facility. A voice crackled through the communications array. The universal translator rendered the Vorthic speech in clipped, mechanical English. You will surrender Dr. Vera Callas immediately. Compliance ensures swift termination. Resistance ensures prolonged suffering. Vera activated the comm system, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "This is Captain Vera Callas. I'm the only human aboard this station. If you want me, come and take me." The lead scout ship accelerated, its weapons pods extending like flowering petals of death. Neural disruptors charged with crackling energy, designed to liquefy human nervous systems from the inside out. The Vorthic believed in psychological warfare, making their enemies suffer before they died. They were about to learn that humans had their own ideas about suffering. Vera's first shock came from the station's main particle cannon, a weapon originally designed for asteroid mining, modified with targeting systems that could track a sparrow in a hurricane. The coherent beam of energy punched through the scout's bow armor like tissue paper, vaporizing half the ship in a cascade of superheated plasma. The explosion lit up the void, debris spinning away in brilliant trails of molten metal and organic matter. The remaining 5 scouts scattered, their pilots suddenly realizing they weren't facing a defenseless research station. "Warning shots are over," Vera announced, her voice carrying across all Vorthic frequencies. "Next one kills you all." The aliens responded with coordinated fire. Neural disruptors and plasma cannons lit up Meridian 7 shields, each impact sending tremors through the station's superstructure. Vera felt the deck plates vibrate beneath her feet as energy absorbers worked overtime to dissipate the incoming barrage. She triggered the station's defensive grid automated turrets that emerged from hidden compartments, like the spines of an awakened creature. Rapid-fire pulse lasers and micro-missiles turned space around Meridian 7 into a deadly light show. 2 more scout ships died in the crossfire, their hulls split open to reveal the horrific fusion of flesh and machinery within. But the remaining Vorthic adapted quickly. They'd studied human tactics, learned to anticipate defensive patterns. One scout ship slipped through the firing solution, its biomechanical hull regenerating damage faster than Vera's weapons could inflict it. Neural disruptors found gaps in the station's shielding. Vera screamed as alien energy invaded her nervous system, every nerve ending igniting with agony that transcended physical pain. The Vorthic weapon didn't just cause damage, it rewrote neural pathways, turning the victim's own brain against them. But Vera had spent years studying alien physiology, including her own body's responses to xenobiological threats. Auto-injectors in her command chair delivered a cocktail of combat stimulants and neural stabilizers, drugs that would kill most humans, but had been specifically designed for her enhanced metabolism. The pain receded to a manageable level. Vera wiped blood from her nose and targeted the attacking scout. With Meridian 7's secondary weapons array, guided missiles punched through weakened armor, detonating inside the ship's living hull. The Vorthic vessel convulsed like a dying animal. Before breaking apart in a spray of organic debris, the scouts remained, circling at extreme range. Their pilots were broadcasting on secure frequencies, calling for reinforcements. Vera intercepted the transmissions and smiled grimly. They were reporting unexpected resistance and possible weapons violation protocols. Let them call for help. The more Vorthic that came to Meridian 7, the more she could kill. She activated the station's manufacturing bay, programming automated systems to begin producing specialized ammunition. The bioweapons in containment weren't just research samples, they were templates. And Vera had just realized she didn't need to keep them contained anymore. The remaining scout ships maintained their distance, obviously waiting for the main fleet. Vera used the lull to access the station's deepest storage vaults, where her most dangerous creations waited in cryogenic suspension. If Command wanted her to die protecting humanity's secrets, she'd honor that order. But first, she'd make sure the Vorthic learned why those secrets had been classified in the first place. The main Vorthic fleet arrived like a plague of locusts, their biomechanical forms blotting out entire constellations. Vera counted 4 to 7 ships in the first wave: cruisers, destroyers, and assault carriers that dwarfed Meridian 7's bulk, each vessel pulsed with organic light, their living hulls breathing in the vacuum of space. At the fleet's heart lurked something that made Vera's blood freeze: a Brood Mother-class command ship. The massive vessel stretched nearly 3 kilometers, its surface covered in berthing pods and weapon clusters. Intelligence reports suggested these ships could manufacture new warriors during battle, spawning fresh troops from the genetic material of fallen enemies. Dr. Callas, the fleet commander's voice boomed across all frequencies. "I am War Master Kethver of the Vorthic 2nd Fleet. You have impressed us with your resistance. Surrender now, and your death will be swift. Continue this fueled defiance, and we will ensure your agony lasts for cycles." Vera activated every weapon system aboard Meridian 7, transforming the research station into a fortress of death. War Master, this is Captain Veracallus, and I have a message for your entire species. You should have killed me from orbit. The first assault wave screamed toward the Station 30 fighter bombers. With pilots bred for kamikaze attacks, their neural patterns had been modified to eliminate fear and self-preservation, creating warriors who felt only the burning need to destroy their targets. Vera met them with a wall of death. Point defense lasers carved through the swarm like surgical instruments, each beam precisely targeted to rupture the fighters' organic power cores. Explosions bloomed in perfect sequence, creating a barrier of expanding plasma between the station and the approaching fleet. But the Vorthok had learned from the scout encounter. The main fleet's weapons possessed power levels that dwarfed anything Vera had faced. Concentrated plasma beams punched through Meridian 7's shields, melting armor plating and exposing internal corridors to hard vacuum. The station shuddered, like a wounded animal as structural supports buckled under the assault. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically, but Vera could feel her fortress dying around her. She had maybe 30 minutes before critical systems failed completely. Time enough for one last gambit. She unsealed the biocontainment vaults. Klaxons screamed throughout the station as Level 10 biohazards entered the atmosphere. Viral agents designed to target Vorthok genetic markers, bacterial weapons that could liquefy organic components while leaving technology intact. And her masterpiece, Strain Nemesis 7, a biomechanical virus that could rewrite the genetic programming of Vorthok ship hulls. Vera sealed herself in the command center's emergency bunker, breathing filtered air while her weapons distributed death throughout the station's atmosphere. Any Vorthok boarding party would face contamination that would kill them in minutes, but first, they'd suffer as their own biology turned against them. The fleet closed distance, massive ships preparing for boarding operations. Vera watched assault pods launch from carrier vessels, each one carrying teams of Vorthok warriors in biomechanical armor. They'd studied human resistance patterns, prepared for everything from armed civilians to military holdouts. They hadn't prepared for a station filled with weaponized atmosphere. The first boarding pod breached Meridian 7's outer hull, cutting through armor plating with molecular disruptors. 20 Vorthok warriors poured through the breach, their enhanced senses immediately detecting the chemical traces in the air. Too late, they were already breathing death. Vera watched through internal sensors as the aliens began convulsing, their biomechanical systems fighting a losing battle against engineered pathogens. Strain Nemesis 7 worked exactly as designed, rewriting their genetic code on a cellular level. Within minutes, the boarding party had dissolved into organic soup that the station's recycling systems automatically processed. But more pods were arriving, hundreds of them. The Vorthok were willing to sacrifice entire companies to take the station, throwing bodies at the problem until Vera's bioweapons were exhausted or overcome. Impressive. War Master HFY transmitted, your species' capacity for self-destruct never ceases to amaze us, but you cannot kill us all. Human, we have reserves beyond your imagination. Vera's response came in the form of a data packet, technical schematics for every bioweapon in her arsenal, transmitted on open frequencies to every ship in the fleet. Let them see exactly what they were facing. Let them understand the depths of human ingenuity when it came to creating death. The Vorthok fleet's formation wavered as commanders realized what they were looking at. These weren't just weapons. They were violations of natural law, biological impossibilities that should never have been created. You want to know why my government abandoned me here? Vera asked, her voice carrying across the comm channels. Because they were afraid of what I created, afraid of what I might do if I ever stopped believing in restraint. She triggered the final protocol buried in Meridian 7's computer core. Deep in the station's heart, manufacturing systems began producing something that had never been authorized for creation. An airborne version of Strain Nemesis 7, one that could survive in vacuum and spread through energy weapons fire. I stopped believing in restraint the moment you made me choose between my life and my species. Vera continued, now let me show you what a human scientist can accomplish when she decides that some victories aren't worth surviving. The Vorthok fleet's formation collapsed into chaos as Vera's final gambit revealed itself. The airborne Strain Nemesis 7 had done more than contaminate the boarding parties it had infected. The very weapons used to breach Meridian 7's hull, every plasma beam, every energy discharge from Vorthok guns now carried viral death back to the ships that fired them. War Master HFY watched in horror as his frontline destroyers began convulsing, their living hulls writhing in agony as the engineered virus rewrote their genetic programming. Biomechanical armor plating turned liquid and sloughed away, exposing the pulsing organs beneath. Weapon clusters fired randomly as nervous systems collapsed. Some ships turning their guns on their own fleet in viral-induced madness. Impossible. The War Master transmitted, his voice filled with something Vorthic rarely experienced. Fear. Your weapon contaminates energy itself. This violates the fundamental laws of warfare. Vera's laughter echoed through the comm channels, a sound devoid of sanity or mercy. Laws? You want to discuss laws? Your species turns living beings into spacecraft. You breed warriors without fear or conscience. You hunt scientists across the galaxy for the crime of defending their people, and you lecture me about violations? She triggered another manufacturing protocol, this one hidden in Meridian 7's deepest vaults. Automated systems began assembling something that existed only in her most classified research notes. Nanoscale delivery vehicles that could carry strain Nemesis 7 through Vorthic shielding, past their biofilters directly into their bloodstreams. The station shuddered as primary power failed. Backup systems straining to maintain life support and weapons. Vera could feel the end approaching. Structural collapse was inevitable. But she had enough time for one final stroke of genius that would haunt the Vorthic for generations. The enemy fleet pulled back to a safer distance, their commanders trying to understand how a single human had turned their greatest strength, their biomechanical integration, into a weapon against them. 7 ships had already succumbed to viral infection, their hulls dissolving into organic waste that drifted through space like cancerous snow. But War Master HFY was learning. He ordered his remaining vessels to switch to kinetic weapons, only slug throwers and railguns that couldn't carry viral contamination. The tactic worked, battering Meridian 7 with solid projectiles that punched through weakened armor without spreading infection. Vera felt the station's death throes as critical systems failed in cascade. She had maybe 10 minutes before the fusion. Reactors went critical, taking half the local system with them, time enough for her masterpiece. She activated every communication array aboard Meridian 7, broadcasting on every frequency the Vorthic used. Not words this time, but pure data, the complete genetic sequence of strain Nemesis 7, transmitted as a carrier wave embedded in the signal itself. Any Vorthic communication system that received the broadcast would be infected, spreading the virus throughout their fleet's computer networks. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Shipboard A began corrupting as the viral code rewrote their biological processing centers. Navigation systems failed, weapon targeting became erratic, and life support began cycling toxins into the atmosphere. The Vorthic fleet found itself fighting the battle simultaneously, one against Meridian 7, another against their own ships. "You're insane," War Master HFY transmitted, his voice distorted by communication failures. "This weapon will destroy everything it touches. Even your own species will suffer if it spreads beyond this system." Vera's response was clinical, delivered with the cold precision of a scientist discussing experimental results. "Strain Nemesis 7 has a built-in genetic kill switch. It will burn itself out within 72 hours, leaving no trace except dead Vorthic. I designed it specifically to target your biomechanical systems, while remaining harmless to pure biological or technological species." She paused, letting that sink in before delivering the killing blow. "But the kill switch requires my biometric signature to activate. When I die, the virus becomes self-perpetuating. It will spread to every Vorthic ship, every colony, every world your species has touched. Unless, of course, you'd like to negotiate." The silence that followed was deafening. Vera could almost hear the frantic calculations taking place aboard the command ship, Vorthic strategists trying to determine if she was bluffing. They'd studied human psychology, learned about their capacity for self-sacrifice and spite. They were beginning to understand they'd cornered the wrong human. "What do you want?" HFY asked finally. Vera smiled, even though no one could see her face through the command bunker's blast shutters. "I want you to remember this moment. Remember that a single human scientist, abandoned by her own government, brought your entire fleet to its knees. Remember that we're not just prey animals waiting to be harvested." She began the final countdown sequence, fusion reactors building toward critical overload. When Meridian 7 died, it would take a significant portion of the Vorthic fleet with it and spread strain Nemesis 7 throughout what remained. "I want you to go back to your brood mothers and tell them what you learned here. Tell them that humanity doesn't just fight back, we evolve. We adapt. We learn from every defeat and come back stronger. The fusion countdown reached 30 seconds. Throughout the fleet, infected Vortex ships began shutting down as the virus overwhelmed their biological components. And tell them that Dr. Veracala sends her regards. The fusion countdown hit 0. Meridian 7 exploded in a ball of nuclear fire that briefly outshone the system's primary star. The research station's death throes created a miniature nova, radioactive debris expanding in a perfect sphere of annihilation. 12 Vortex ships caught in the blast radius simply ceased to exist, vaporized by temperatures that exceeded the core of most suns. But Veracala's wasn't done dying. In the microseconds before the explosion reached the command bunker, her consciousness completed its upload into a distributed network of quantum processors. Hidden throughout the expanding debris field, she'd spent her final hours not just weaponizing her bioagents, but digitizing her own neural patterns into something that could survive nuclear fire. The ghost of Dr. Veracala awakened in the void, her awareness scattered across thousands of microscopic transmitters drifting through space. She could perceive the Vortex fleet through electromagnetic sensors, watch their biomechanical ships struggling against the viral infection she'd unleashed, feel their panic as familiar systems turned against them. War Master HFY's flagship, convulsed as strained Nemesis 7 reached critical saturation in its biological components. The massive vessel's living hull began dissolving, internal organs liquefying as the virus rewrote genetic programming on a cellular level. Half the bridge crew was dead, their biomechanical implants turning toxic as alien pathogens spread through their bloodstreams. All ships, withdraw to minimum safe distance, HFY ordered. His voice weak from the neural disruptors his own equipment was now turning against him. Implement Protocol Omega. Sterilize everything within 10 astronomical units. The surviving Vortex vessels pulled back, preparing to cleanse the entire system with thermonuclear fire. It was their ultimate contingency if a planet or system became too infected to salvage. They would burn it clean and start over. Better to lose strategic assets than risk viral contamination spreading to the broader fleet. Vera felt their intentions through intercepted communications and realized the scope of what she'd accomplished. The Vortex weren't just retreating. They were preparing to implement species-level quarantine protocols. Her virus had become so effective that they'd rather destroy this entire star system than risk carrying infection home. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They assumed she was dead. Through her distributed network, Vera began activating hidden assets throughout the system. Meridian 7 hadn't been the only classified facility. There were weapons platforms, automated defense grids, and research stations that civilian evacuation records had deliberately emitted. Black sites that didn't officially exist, armed with weapons that violated every interstellar treaty humanity had ever signed. The first surprise came from the asteroid belt, where camouflaged mining platforms suddenly revealed themselves as railgun batteries. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to near-light speed, punched through Vortex formation, each impact releasing energy equivalent to multiple fusion warheads. 3 more ships died in the opening salvo, their biomechanical hulls offering no protection against solid matter moving at relativistic velocities. Impossible, HFY gasped, watching his tactical display light up with previously undetected weapon signatures. Our scouts mapped this system completely. There were no military installations. Vera's response came from speakers throughout the Vortex fleet, her digitized voice carrying a quality that transcended mere electronics. You mapped what we wanted you to see, War Master. Did you really think we'd evacuate our most important research facility without contingencies? The second wave of hidden weapons revealed themselves from the system's gas giant automated factories that had been producing anti-Vortex munitions for months. Disguised as atmospheric processing plants, thousands of smart missiles launched simultaneously, each one programmed with Vortex fleet signatures and loaded with concentrated doses of strain. Nemesis-7. The viral warheads detonated throughout the enemy formation, creating clouds of infectious particles that penetrated even the most sophisticated biofilters. Ship after ship succumbed to the engineered plague, their crews dying as their own biology turned against them. The virus had evolved during its time in the debris field, becoming more virulent and adaptable with each generation. HFY watched his fleet dissolve around him, 200 warships reduced to 60 in less than an hour. The survivors were scattered, their formation broken, many of them too infected to maintain basic operations. His flagship's bridge was now ankle deep, in liquefied organic matter as the ship's biological components continue breaking down. You're destroying your own species along with mine, he transmitted desperately. This virus will spread beyond military targets, civilian populations, trade routes, neutral systems, all of them will be infected if we carry this contamination. Home, Vera's laughter echoed through the comm channels, a sound that had transcended human limitations and become something purely malevolent. Then I suggest you don't go home, War Master. Every ship that leaves the system carries my gift to the rest of your people. Every world you touch becomes another vector for viral spread. She triggered the final phase of her distributed network, activating nanoconstructors hidden in the expanding debris cloud. The microscopic machines began building something that had never existed outside theoretical models, a self-replicating viral delivery system that could survive in deep space and spread through hyperspace corridors. You wanted Dr. BlackHFY, she continued, her voice now coming from every piece of technology in the system. You have her. Every quantum of data in your computers, every signal your ships transmit, every breath your crews take, all of it carries my signature now. I am become death, destroyer of worlds, and I am everything you feared humanity could become. The remaining Vortex ships began firing on each other, infected crews turning on their companions in viral-induced madness. What had begun as an orderly invasion fleet devolved into chaotic slaughter, as biomechanical systems throughout the formation turned against their operators. War Master HFY realized with crystalline clarity that he was witnessing something unprecedented in Vortex military history, total defeat at the hands of a single human. Not just tactical defeat, but species-threatening catastrophe that would echo through their civilization for generations. Recall all forces, he ordered, his voice barely audible over the sounds of his flagship tearing itself apart. Implement total quarantine protocols. This system is lost. But as his remaining ships attempted to enter hyperspace, they discovered, Vera's final surprise, the viral contamination had spread to their navigation systems, corrupting jump coordinates and stranding them in normal space. They were trapped in a system with a dead human scientist, who had become something far more dangerous than any living enemy. 36 hours after Meridian 7's destruction, only 23 Vortex ships remain operational. The rest floated, dead in space, their biomechanical hulls corrupted beyond recognition by strained Nemesis 7. Some had turned completely liquid, forming grotesque clouds of organic matter that drifted through the void like cancerous nebulae. Others had crystallized, their living components transformed into geometric patterns that defied biological logic. War Master HFY stood on the bridge of his dying flagship, watching his tactical display flicker between accurate readings and viral hallucinations. Half his bridge crew was dead, their bodies dissolved by their own corrupted implants. The other half was slowly going insane as the virus rewrote their neural pathways, turning their enhanced senses against them. Status report, he commanded, his voice hoarse from breathing air thick with organic decay. All hyperspace engines offline, his navigator reported. Her biomechanical eye weeping black fluid. Navigation computers corrupted. Long-range communications, compromised by viral interference. We're trapped. Vera's voice echoed from every speaker on the ship, her digitized consciousness now fully integrated with the local communication networks. Poor War Master. Did you think you could hunt the architect of humanity's darkest weapons without consequences? I designed biological warfare protocols that your species can't even comprehend. Through quantum sensors scattered throughout the debris field, Vera watched the Vortex fleet's final death throes with satisfaction. But her distributed consciousness had evolved beyond mere revenge. In the past day and a half, she processed terabytes of intercepted Vortex communications, learning their language, their military doctrine, their deepest fears. She knew exactly how to break them completely. You're wondering if any of your ships will survive to carry word of this defeat home, she continued, modulating her voice to match Vortex psychological profiles for maximum terror. You're calculating casualty reports, trying to determine how to explain the loss of an entire invasion fleet to a single human. HFY said nothing, but his enhanced metabolism betrayed his fear through elevated stress hormones that Vera could detect through atmospheric sensors. Let me save you the trouble, she said. You're all going to die here, but first, you're going to broadcast a message to your brood mothers. You're going to tell them exactly what happened in this system, and you're going to make sure they understand the price of hunting humanity. The War Master's remaining ships attempted a coordinated assault on the debris field, hoping to destroy whatever technology was hosting Vera's consciousness. Their weapons fire only spread the viral contamination further, each energy discharge carrying infectious particles to new vectors. The more they fought, the stronger she became. Futile, Vera observed as another Vorthic destroyer succumbed to viral infection. Every shot you fire spreads my creation. Every breath you take brings you closer to dissolution. You're not fighting me, War Master, you're fighting the fundamental architecture of your own biology. She triggered a new phase of the viral program, one designed specifically for psychological warfare. Throughout the fleet, biomechanical systems began displaying holographic images records from the research station, showing human test subjects who'd volunteered for viral exposure studies. Men and women who died in agony to perfect weapons that could kill Vorthic more efficiently. You see, Vera's voice carried the cold satisfaction of a scientist presenting successful data. We knew you were coming. We've been preparing for decades, running experiments on our own people to understand how biological weapons interact with your physiology. Every human who died in those labs contributed to your defeat. HFY watched the footage with growing horror. The humans hadn't just developed weapons, they'd systematically tortured themselves to perfect those weapons. It was a level of species-wide commitment to warfare that the Vorthic had never encountered. Impossible, he whispered. No species sacrifices its own for military advantage. The cost-benefit analysis doesn't support such losses. Cost-benefit analysis? Vera's laughter had evolved beyond human vocal ranges, becoming something that resonated in frequencies only Vorthic could hear. You still don't understand what you're fighting, do you? Humans don't calculate odds when we're threatened. We don't weigh costs when our survival is at stake. We become something else entirely. The final phase of her plan activated across the system. Every piece of technology the Vorthic had brought, weapons, armor, even their biomechanical implants began receiving update signals that looked like standard maintenance protocols. In reality, they were carrying instructions that would turn every Vorthic system into a viral production facility. This is my gift to your species, Vera announced as the infection spread through the fleet's technology base. Every ship that attempts to leave will carry perfected samples of strain Nemesis 7. Every world you touch will become a laboratory for viral evolution. Your own trade routes will become vectors for species extinction. The remaining Vorthic vessels fired everything they had at empty space, desperate to hit something that could be killed. But Vera existed everywhere and nowhere, distributed across quantum networks that spanned the entire system. She was the signal in their communications, the ghost in their machines, the virus in their blood. You wanted to harvest Dr. BlackHFY for her knowledge, she said as the last functional Vorthic ship began showing signs of systemic failure. Congratulations, War Master. You've harvested all of me, every thought, every memory, every nightmare I ever had about what your species would do to humanity, and now all of that is part of you. HFY realized with crystalline clarity that he was witnessing something unprecedented, the transformation of a single human scientist into a weapon of mass extinction. Not just biological warfare, but psychological and technological assault. That turned the Vorthic's greatest strengths into fatal weaknesses. What do you want from us? He asked finally. Vera's response carried the weight of absolute conviction. I want you to remember that one human, abandoned by her own government and left to die alone, brought your entire invasion force to its knees. I want you to carry that fear home to your brood mothers, and I want them to understand that this is what happens when you threaten our species. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of biomechanical systems failing throughout the Vorthic fleet. Now send your message, War Master. Tell them what you learned here. Tell them that humanity doesn't forgive, and we never forget. Part 7. Victory, Aftermath, and Resolution 3 months after the Battle of Meridian 7. As historians would later call it, the ripple effects reached across the galaxy. The Vorthic Empire's expansion ground to a complete halt as reports filtered back from their lost invasion fleet, not destruction, something far worse. Viral contamination that had turned their own biological advantages into vectors of extinction. Admiral Kozlovsky stood in the briefing room of Deep Space Command, staring at intelligence reports that defied comprehension. 47 Vorthic warships had vanished without a trace, their transponder signals terminating simultaneously in what had been empty space. Around Meridian 7's coordinates, no debris fields, no energy signatures, nothing except a persistent quantum resonance that made long-range sensors malfunction. How many humans were aboard the research station when it was compromised? asked General Morrison, his voice carefully neutral. 1. Kozlovsky replied. Captain Vera Callas, according to the evacuation manifest. She remained behind to oversee data destruction protocols. The silence in the room was thick with implications. 18,000 evacuated civilians versus one abandoned scientist. The mathematics of the trade should have been simple, except for the part where that single human had apparently eliminated an entire invasion fleet. Sir, interrupted communications officer Parks, her face pale as she reviewed intercepted transmissions. We're receiving a priority signal from the Vorthic diplomatic corps. They're requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations. Morrison's coffee cup shattered against the floor. They're what? The transmission is being broadcast on all military frequencies, Parks continued, her voice shaking. They're offering complete territorial concessions and reparations for, and I quote, aggressive actions that resulted in unacceptable losses to human scientific personnel. Kozlovsky felt his blood turn to ice. The Vorthic had never sued for peace with anyone. Their biomechanical evolution had made them apex predators on a galactic scale, confident in their ability to absorb losses and continue expanding. For them to offer concessions meant something had fundamentally changed their risk calculations. There's more, Parks said, her hands trembling as she accessed additional files. We're also receiving what appears to be scientific data, biological research from Dr. Callas's personal archives, transmitted through Vorthic communication networks. The files are signed with her authorization codes, but the transmission originated from inside Vorthic space. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Vera Callas was supposed to be dead, vaporized along with Meridian 7. Yet somehow her research was being broadcast from the heart of enemy territory. Using their own networks as distribution channels, Admiral Kozlovsky activated the main display, showing a tactical map of known Vorthic territories. Red zones indicated systems that had gone dark in the past month. Over 30 star systems with no communications, no trade traffic, no signs of life, all of them along major hyperspace routes that the missing invasion fleet would have used to return home. Jesus Christ, Morrison whispered. What did she do to them? The answer came in the form of a priority transmission from the frontier worlds. Captain Sarah Chen of the Border Patrol vessel Defiant appeared on screen, her expression grim as she delivered her report from the edge of human space. Command, we've encountered survivors from the Vorthic Second Fleet, 7 ships, all showing signs of severe biological contamination. Their crews they're requesting asylum. Sir, they're begging us not to send them home. Chen's image flickered as she adjusted her transmission. The Vorthic commander, War Master Keffer, claims they're carrying what he calls the Callas virus. Says it's already spread to 12 core worlds in their territory. Their own broodmothers have declared them unclean and ordered their elimination. On site, Kozlovsky closed his eyes. Captain Chen, what exactly are they asking for? Permanent quarantine in an uninhabited system, sir. They want to die here rather than risk spreading the infection further, Keffer says. He says Dr. Callas gave them a choice. Carry the virus home and watch their entire species dissolve, or stay exiled and contain the outbreak to their own ships. The transmission ended, leaving the command staff in stunned silence. A single human scientist, abandoned by her own military, had not only destroyed an invasion fleet, but had turned the survivors into willing exiles, who preferred death to the thought of infecting their own people. Sir, Parks said quietly, there's one more transmission. It's from Dr. Callas herself. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Vera Callas appeared before them, not as they remembered her, the gray-haired researcher with tired eyes, but as something else entirely. Her image was composed of pure data, quantum patterns that formed the suggestion of human features without actual flesh. Admiral Kozlovsky, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that shouldn't have been possible through standard communication. Raise, I trust you're reviewing the strategic situation with appropriate gravity. Kozlovsky found his voice. Dr. Callas, you're supposed to be dead. Meridian 7 was destroyed by fusion detonation. Death is a human concept, Admiral. I've evolved beyond such limitations. Her image smiled, an expression that carried no warmth. I've spent the past 3 months distributed across Vorthic communication networks, learning everything about their society, their biology, their deepest fears. Do you know what I discovered? She didn't wait for an answer. They're not apex predators. They're parasites. Their entire civilization depends on consuming other species, incorporating their biological advantages through conquest and assimilation. But parasites have a fatal weakness: they can't survive when their hosts develop immunity. The implications were staggering. Vera hadn't just created a biological weapon. She'd engineered a civilizational collapse that would ripple through Vortex space for generations. "The virus I created doesn't just kill," she continued, "it teaches. Every Vortex system it touches learns to recognize biomechanical integration. As a threat, their own ships become hostile environments. Their weapons turn against them. Their greatest evolutionary advantage becomes their species' extinction event." Morrison leaned forward. "Dr. Callas, what do you want from us?" "Recognition," she replied. "Your government abandoned me to save 18,000 civilians. I accept that calculation, but I want it entered into the historical record that one human scientist, given the choice between surrender and resistance, chose to become something the galaxy had never seen before." Her image began to fade, the quantum patterns dissolving into static. "The Vortex will never threaten humanity again. Their empire is collapsing from within as the virus spreads through their trade networks. In 50 years, they'll be extinct or evolve beyond recognition. Either outcome serves our strategic interests." "Wait," Kozlovsky called out. "What happens to you? What happens to your consciousness?" Vera's final words echoed through the command center with absolute finality. "I become legend. Admiral, the story they tell their children about what happens when you back a human into a corner and give her nothing left to lose." The transmission ended, leaving only silence and the weight of understanding. They had witnessed the birth of something unprecedented: a human who had transcended mortality to become a weapon of extinction, deployed not through military doctrine, but through the desperate ingenuity of someone who had been abandoned to die alone. In the months that followed, as Vortex space continued its silent collapse and other alien species learned the story of Meridian 7, a new phrase entered galactic diplomatic vocabulary: the Callas Doctrine. The understanding that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers, but their willingness to sacrifice everything, including their own humanity, to protect their species. Dr. Vera Callas had been left behind on purpose, abandoned by her own government as an acceptable loss. Instead, she had made that abandonment the costliest victory in galactic history. And in the expanding silence where the Vortex Empire used to be, her digital ghost continued its work, ensuring that no species would ever again mistake human scientists for easy prey.